From an early age, Sally knew she was going to have her own restaurant. It was not a child's dream, but a goal she had been working toward since she was about 10 years old. She was always reading about different dishes, watching cooking shows and cooking. Her parents always supported her. They said that their daughter would absolutely achieve her dream if she worked hard for it. But her biggest fan was her older sister. She was forever helping her develop her culinary skills. Sarah bought everything Sally dreamed of. She didn't even have to ask. Her sister took Sally to master classes and introduced her to restaurateurs. Much of her knowledge was a credit to Sarah. After graduation, Sally missed a year of school. She wanted some time off before studying and moving. Her parents didn't like it, but Sarah was in solidarity with Sally. Her sister was always on Sally's side. During that year, they went to London many times. Sarah wanted Sally to feel comfortable in the new city after the move too. The sisters would walk the streets of the capital and introduce Sally's future restaurant to one of them. Her sister said she would help her with everything, but she could not keep her promise. Sally was sitting at her friend's house when she learned that she had been accepted to London University. Joy overwhelmed her. She wanted to tell Sarah, but she didn't pick up the phone. Sally rushed home to tell her parents first, and then to go to her sister. But there was an unpleasant surprise waiting for her at home. Sally immediately sensed the tension, and when she saw her parents sobbing, she knew something terrible had happened. Sarah had been in an accident. Her sister's car had been crashed into by some drunken freak. The doctors tried everything they could, but they could not save her. When Sally heard this, her world shattered like the vase she and Sarah had dropped when they were younger. Sally didn't know what to do. The air in her lungs was running out. Sally felt like she was dying. She didn't remember for months after her sister died. All she remembered was the suffocating pain. Then the girl dropped her hands. Her parents persuaded her to go away to study, but she refused. The girl saw absolutely no point in anything else. Thoughts of her own restaurant were lost somewhere in the depths of her mind. All day long, Sally cried and revisited pictures with her sister. The memories were killing her. Sally just wanted to hold Sarah again, to hold her and never let her go again, but that was impossible. She had spent about a year or so of her life in that state. Then the pain began to subside a little at a time, but she could no longer dream of the restaurant. The girl wanted to open it together with her sister. Without Sarah, there would be no restaurant. Sally enrolled in a local university to major in a field she didn't even want to work in. It was there that she met James, her future husband. At first, they were just friends. Sally didn't consider him a boyfriend, but James was very persistent and eventually the girl gave in. They dated for 3 years and then he proposed to her. In fact, Sally didn't want to marry him, but she blamed it on the fact that she was just afraid of the responsibility. After 2 years of marriage together, Sally realized that she just didn't love him, but she couldn't leave. The girl felt sorry for him. Somehow, she didn't see what a jerk he really was. He seemed like a decent and honest man to her. She would have been better off not starting a relationship with him. Sally had thought many times about starting her own business. She had wanted to open something of her own, but James had convinced her every time that it was a failed idea, and the girl believed it, not knowing why. After 3 years of marriage, she thought again about her restaurant. At the time, the thought was very fragile, and any sloppy word could make it disappear. The first thing Sally did was to tell her parents about it. They were happy that their daughter could once again think about what she had dreamed of since childhood. Her best friend was also supportive of Sally. Everyone around her said it was a good idea, everyone except James. Her husband kept saying over and over that it was crazy. Said she couldn't even open a diner, much less a restaurant. Even though she didn't love him, the words still hurt her. Sally decided that he was right, and that the others were just deceiving her so as not to upset her. She probably never would have made up her mind to move forward if not for one incident. The girl wanted to go to the cemetery, sit by her sister's grave. She sat there for 3 hours, told Sarah everything about her life, knowing full well that she was talking to herself. But it was easier that way. Sally needed it. At the very end, she had the courage to talk about the restaurant. She said she'd wanted to open it, but she'd changed her mind. She poured her heart out and started to go home. She wanted to go to the ice cream parlor where she and Sally always ate ice cream. It was far away, but Sally wanted to go there intensely. She decided to order the ice cream her sister liked. The waiter quickly brought her order. Just as she started to eat it, the cafe started to play a song. It was her and Sarah's favorite song. Sally was in shock. Memories came over her in a huge wave, but this time they didn't take her deep down. The waves nailed her to shore. In that moment, the girl realized what she had to do. It dawned on her that she was just wasting her life. She was wasting her life. She was living with a man she didn't love, in a city she had always disliked. Even though now Sally could live in London and do the things she really liked. She had so many opportunities, but Sally chose to shut herself away, to hide from the world. She realized she didn't want to live like that anymore. She wanted to follow her dream, to conquer new horizons. The life she's living now isn't enough for her. I deserve more. I want that, and Sarah would too. My sister wouldn't appreciate me dropping everything and going headlong into my grief. She would have slapped me in the face and then bought me a ticket to London. Sarah had spent so much time and money on me, and I just blew it off. Decided I wasn't worthy of my dreams, but I wasn't, Sally told herself. That same night, Sally informed James that she wanted to file for divorce. The man was furious. He said she was ungrateful, that she would never make it, and the girl would come crawling back to him to beg for forgiveness. He insulted her and asked for all the gifts he gave her back. Sally said she knew about all his cheating. Then he began to ask for forgiveness and said he would change. But the girl was adamant. She no longer had any love feelings for him. Maybe she never had any. With difficulty, she managed to get away from her obsessive ex-husband. Sally began to think about moving and how much money she could use to start her own business, so much more in London. Her parents helped her with that. She was born into a well-to-do family, so she never had a problem with money. She just didn't want to ask her parents for financial help. But they insisted, and she took it, but promised to pay it back as soon as she could. Sally was moving to London with her best friend. Sophia was also discouraged by life in her hometown, so as soon as she heard Sally was leaving, she suggested we go together. Sally liked the idea because she didn't like being alone. And in a new city where she had no one at all, she would definitely be lonely. The girls started renting a not very expensive apartment because they didn't have a steady income. Sally rented a medium-sized place. It was far from the center, but the traffic was good. She realized that with the money her parents gave her, she would not be able to open a restaurant right away. So she decided to start with a small cafe. She moved towards her goal with small, but sure steps. At first, there were practically no customers, but she did not give up. Sally knew she had to fight for her dream. She didn't want to miss her chance a second time. Sophia helped Sally a lot with the cafe. They didn't have the money to hire a huge number of employees, so in some places they had to work on their own. Time passed and business was booming. People began to come to them more often. The girls started advertising on social networks. This gave a strong impetus. Little by little, they started to make good money. Sally denied herself the comfort of putting away more money to grow her business for a long time. And it had its rewards. She managed to rent a nice space that was closer to the center. It was no longer a cafe, but a restaurant. Not everyone liked this abrupt transition, and Sally even thought she had ruined everything. Fortunately, she was wrong. People needed time to get used to it. The restaurant wasn't the biggest, but the girls were happy anyway. They couldn't believe they'd made it. Sally couldn't believe it. She thought it was all a dream. She was afraid she would open her eyes, and there was James lying next to her. telling her once again that she couldn't accomplish anything without him. After a while, things started to get even better. The girls were able to rent another space. 2.5 years have passed since then. Now they are doing great. The girls live in good conditions and have their own business. Sally still can't believe she was able to fulfill her dream. I'm afraid to imagine what would have happened to me if I had stayed in my hometown. I hate to think that I could have lived my whole life for nothing. I don't understand why I dragged it out for so long. Why did I forbid myself to even think about the restaurant? How could I have imagined that Sarah would be against it? My sister was always on my side. She wanted me to live for myself. Sarah wouldn't forgive me for turning my back on my dreams. The girl wished me all the best, helped me with the admission and the move, and I just gave up. Sally told herself. She often walked around the places her sisters had been when they came here on a field trip. In those moments, Sally didn't feel alone. She feels as if her own sister is walking beside her, and though she knows this is not the case, she feels warm at heart. Sally is proud of herself, proud that she has been able to pull herself together, though not right away. I think Sarah would be proud of me too. No, I'm 100% sure she would be, Sally said with a smile.